Hello, everyone. This is Mike from Dimensional Walking. And today we're going to talk about something really interesting the wonderful hearing we had on UFOs and UAPs just recently. And I wasn't necessarily going to do another video on it, but actually it was quite a really good uh, hearing that went on. But before I do that, before we go through that and talk a little bit about some of the details, I just wanted to kind of review something so you kind of know where I'm coming from, okay? So I've been in the UFO paranormal business for over 55 years, and I say business, it's really not a business. It's really a passion and an endeavor for me that I've been involved with all my life. So one of the things I have done is I've done about 1,500 interviews with abductees and contactees about UFOs and all kinds of alien type things. I also worked for several, or did work for several aerospace companies and had fairly high clearances in all of them. And that, of course, the interesting thing about it brought on my ability to ask some questions. And in some cases, I got some really interesting answers. And I've talked about them in other videos too. So I've also, the research I've done, like I say, a lot of research, and I've talked to a lot of government type employees. I've talked to a president about UFOs. I've talked to military people, law enforcement people, and that's not really including my personal experiences that I've had myself with UFOs and aliens, actually. So I'm not ringing my bell. I'm not waving my flag, but I like every so often let everybody know that I have a bit of a background, okay, in this field. And anyways, with that said, let's continue. So there was three obviously there was three people that were being interviewed here at this hearing. The first one was probably the one that talked the most. He had the most information. He was a former military intelligence agent, and I think he spent about 14 years in various departments, agencies of the intelligence world. Okay, and also with him there was two fighter pilots who had actually had some direct encounters with UFOs. Okay, so one of the things that and this guy's name is David Grush. One of the things he said that the government has absolutely been covering this whole subject matter up for many, many years. He didn't mix words. He just went right out of the box and just said it. Okay, I think probably most people that are listening to this video knew that already. Nothing new, but it's never been said on record in a congressional hearing. So that's what's important about this. Among all the different things that you will hear or you're going to hear during this congressional hearing, it's done on record. Okay? Now, I missed maybe a little bit at the beginning. I don't know if these three guys were under oath. I couldn't tell you that. I would hope they were under oath, but and they very well could have been. I may have missed that part when they were doing the on oath thing. Okay, so anyways, the other two guys, of course, were fighter pilots, right? And we're going to talk about them in a little while. Let's stay with Grush because he was probably. I would say the most interesting character because he had a lot of the behind the scenes information about what the government has been covering up, and he wasn't afraid to talk about it. Now, one of the things he did say, and I understand this, now there's going to be people that are going to criticize him because he just didn't tell everything, but he really couldn't. He just cannot tell everything. There's certain things he can say in public, and there's certain things he can say behind closed doors with the congressman, which it sounds like they're going to do. And of course, it'd be amazing to be the fly on the wall for those type of conversations because they're going to get into some of the deep weeds of it all when they talk to him. And I don't know what what exactly will come out of all that, but it's going to be a pretty amazing experience for those congressmen when they have that opportunity. So Grush is served as a representative of two Pentagon task force investigating UAPs until earlier this year. And then he pretty much, the next thing he told everybody that probably completely blew some people's minds is that there's been a multi-decade of crash retrievals. Okay? Now, again, I've talked about Clifford Stone a lot. I've sat with Clifford Stone. I had him at my UFO meeting place in Albuquerque twice. Had lunch with him a couple times. Great guy, and he had, we've talked probably hours about crash retrievals and the ones that he participated in. And if I'm not mistaken, I don't have my notes in front of me, that he did about 20 crash retrievals in his career. And that's his job, was just crash retrievals, believe it or not. So anyways, the interesting thing about it is Grush confirmed some of that conversation, even though he didn't have the details, of course, that Clifford Stone did, because he actually did it. Okay? Grush, heard about it through the grapevine, talked to people that he trusts, and he got that same information. Then he also said there was the same thing, multi-decade of reverse engineering program that our government's been doing, taking UFOs, taking them apart, reassembling them, look at all the parts, see if they can figure out what's what. I'm not sure if they try to fly one or two. I don't know if that's even possible for a human to do that. I doubt it, actually. And that, of course, brings me to Bob Lazar. Bob, said all those things, that was what's going on, and he was part of that. And, of course, everybody poo-pooed him and told him he was crazy. And, they really gave the poor guy a lot of trouble, lots and lots of trouble. So... and all he was doing is trying to tell the truth. So, anyways, but Grush did say that his access was blocked many times to certain things in certain programs. And one of the reasons I think he said was because there was some misappropriation of funds in these programs to cover up and keep the public and keep Congress from overseeing these type of programs. So they just stole money from programs that the government had appropriated, and they put it into these black projects, and there was no record of that. So they could keep on doing their black projects, and even though they lost a couple billion here and a couple billion here on some other projects, I guess nobody really cared, or nobody was digging into that. They should have been. As you probably know, the government seems to lose billions of dollars, and a lot of that is misappropriation to black projects. Okay. Later, he in the interview, Grush said he had direct knowledge of non-human origins and the so-called biologics, and which equals alien beings. He said he had direct knowledge that these were recovered in craft, these crashed craft. Okay. So both members of both parties questioned how Congress should go about investigating these remarkable allegations. I think a lot of them, even though I think a lot of them are very much into the UFO world. Some of them said, some of them maybe seen their own UFOs, or they had some experiences, but they were very, I would say to the witnesses, they were very kind. I think they should have been very kind, but they were very kind, and I thought all the people on the panel, from the congressmen and congresswomen, were really, really very nice. Now there was one person that brought up something about the Chinese balloon thing. It was a political slap at our present president, and it was really uncalled for, because that's not what we're talking about. Okay, yeah, the balloon traveled across the country, and we eventually did shoot it down. But most people don't know this, but everybody was worried they were going to suck all the really important, the Chinese are going to suck all the most important information. Doesn't happen. Okay, just so everybody understands, it just doesn't happen. Because when I worked at the aerospace companies, they have what they the skiffs, the same thing the congressmen were talking about in their plants. And if there was anything talked about that was considered near classified or classified information about products or whatever they made at that particular facility, you would have to go into something called a skiff. Some of them call it different things, but there was some that actually called it the skiff. And that was a place where nobody could get any outside information. Nobody could extract any information from inside that, from the outside, meaning a balloon flying over could not do it. And that's what happens at all these different facilities, okay? Just so everybody knows, we didn't lose any big secrets, even though some people have rumored we did. I doubt it highly we've lost anything. Maybe they took a couple good pictures, and maybe that was it. And who cares? The satellites do that every day. No big deal. So, anyways, one of the more interesting of the congressmen was this Tim Burchett. He's a Republican from Tennessee, and you know what? I really like the guy. I love the way he talked. He's one of those type of guys that you'd love to go out and have a beer with. I mean, I really mean that sincerely. He just was a great guy, and one of the things he said is, we're going to uncover the cover-up. And I hope this is just the beginning of many more hearings and many more people coming forward about this. And there's plenty of people out there. Oh my God, there's tons and tons of people. Just in the places I worked, there was plenty of wisdom and knowledge about that. One of the things I will make a comment about some equipment that I heard about way back when that they talk about here. So anyways, there's this Susan Gersh, I think her name is. I may have written it down wrong. She was a spokesman for AARO. And this is the official AARO, if you know, was the official agency that was just developed to look at all these UFOs that have been reported and try to figure out what the deal is. Now, I got a feeling, they're not coming straight with us, okay? Because she made a statement that her office has not discovered any verifiable information to substantiate claims that any of these programs regarding the possession, reverse engineering, extraterrestrial materials have been existed in the past or existing currently. And blah, blah, blah. She goes on to say that they're committed to timely and thorough reporting to Congress. Unbelievable. I'll tell you why. It is not that hard to find out what David found out. I mean, I've known about it for many, many, many years. There's plenty of people I know that have been aware of that, and we've talked about it. They found out from different sources about these reverse engineering programs and the aliens. It's crazy that the official office doesn't know anything about it. It's pretty sad. It really is. It really is. And we don't even have, ways of getting into the corners like the AARO office does. Okay? They could go and find it if they really wanted to. And I don't think they really want to. They don't want to know the truth. Okay? So anyways, let's talk about for a minute the two pilots. Ryan Graves in 2004. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, Ryan Graves, actually, what Ryan did is he had seen some UFOs in 2014. And he was stationed off of Virginia Beach. And he described them as a dark gray or black cubes that were inside a clear sphere where the apexes, the corners of the cubes were touching the inside of the sphere, which is really cool if you think about it. If you saw that, you'd be pretty impressed with that. And apparently he got within 50 feet when he was flying. Now, I have to tell you something, and there's going to be people who don't believe me, but in a lot of my interviews, like the 1,500 or so interviews I talked about, many people, well, one of the conclusions I came to by looking at what they had said was it seemed to me that if they got within 1,000 feet, of a sighting of a UFO, they were probably taken aboard the UFO. Now, I don't know how it would work if you were only 50 feet away and you're in a jet. Is that UFO? How does it interact with you? But I guarantee you that pilot had had some very, very close encounters with the UFO, and that basically is a really close encounter. And they affected him. His mind was affected by that UFO. I have no doubt in my mind. Okay? Now, one of the other things is in 2012, I was flying back from one of my facilities, and I was flying back, happened to be in a plane with a top engineer of one of the aerospace companies. And actually, I believe at the time, I was doing some work for that same aerospace company. The reason I'm not sure about some of these aerospace companies that I work for quite a few of them, and I can't quite always remember when I worked for which one. But I think this particular one I worked for in 2012, and he was flying the same kind of direction I was going. I don't really know where he was going to go, but I was going that way. Well, I was actually going home, so that would have been in Albuquerque. So he could have been going down to White Sands. He could have been going to Los Alamos. I'm not really sure. And he may have told me, but I didn't really remember. But anyways, the bottom line was he was telling me, without giving me too much detail. Now, let me understand. He knew. I showed him my ID and my clearance. And he knew that I had enough clearance to have this casual conversation. And I knew he showed me his, and I knew he was also working for that company. He was an engineer, okay? Anyways, the bottom line was he was telling me about these new sensors that were connected with the radar on these F-14s that they were going to put in. They were in the process of putting into a lot of F-14s. Well, I don't know. During these pilots were talking about, especially the guy that was talking about the F-14 experience that he had. He said that these brand new sensors that they had and radar they had could suddenly now see a lot of UFOs where they couldn't see them before. So that to me was an amazing confirmation that what that engineer told me back, how many years ago was that? That was 10, 11 years ago, was absolutely correct. Pretty amazing. So it was pretty amazing. So, anyways, Favor, the other pilot is named Favor, and one of the things he said that struck me that I wanted to share was he said, I think what we experienced was, like I said, well beyond the material science and capabilities that we had at the time, and that was that we have currently, or that we were going to have in the next 10 to 20 years. So he's saying he's absolutely certain that these are UFOs because there was no technology anywhere on this planet by humans that could act the way it did. And he said this particularly, I think it was twice. He wanted to make sure everybody heard what he said because it was really a tremendous confirmation that UFOs are real. So one of the other congressmen, also Jared Moskowitz of Florida, he said, we must have disclosure today. We should have disclosure tomorrow. The time has come. So it looks like this group of congressmen on this particular committee are going to keep this thing going. They seem very, very determined, and I don't know who's going to get in their way right now. Now, there's probably going to be people to harass them, departments to harass them, probably the CIA, probably DIA, various departments that have Department of Energy. They're famous for having their finger in the UFO pie. DOD, of course. So there's probably going to be a lot of people breathing down their neck. So what they said is the head of the subcommittee chairman, Glenn Goldman, he said several of us are going to look forward to getting some answers in a more confidential setting. That's what they're talking about, taking especially David Grush into a skiff and ask him some hard questions where he'll answer those hard questions. Now, we may never hear that out of the skiff, but somebody will at least know. And that will propel them, the congressmen, to keep going with this, which is what we really need. Now, with that said, oh, by the way, I will put the link to the full hearing in the description, just so you know. It'll be there if you want. If you haven't seen it, I encourage you to see it. I thought it was excellent. I was shocked, completely shocked. I think under all things that has been said in the past and have these hearings, this truly was right to the point. And what I know is this is right on, absolutely right on. So one of the things I want to say now is basically we're starting to deal with now this, what I call it, the deep can of worms, okay? And it's not only a can of worms, but it's in many layers, like the old famous onion, the layers of the onion. And it's inside a Pandora's box, okay? So you got to put all that together. So it's wild and crazy. And the reason I'm concerned now is because of an observation I've made over the last several years, and I'm still making the observation, is that ever since COVID, I don't know if you guys have noticed this, ever since COVID, people's minds are not good anymore, meaning that they're, I don't know, they're not really paying attention. They got some crazy ideas. I just don't know if they're going to be able to handle us going through, because remember something. Remember, the next thing we will have to discuss, once everybody's convinced that UFOs and aliens are real, which I think we're getting there, right? We're almost there. Then we're gonna have to go ahead and deal with alien abductions. Now, that's going to be mind-boggling. Think about this. The government has been knowing of alien abductions for probably back into the 40s and 50s, at the very least. And they didn't do really a damn thing about it that we're aware of. I don't think they could. They didn't tell people. They didn't protect people, or at least try to protect people. That's going to be some crazy times when that comes out. Talking about a rebellion. To me, that seems like that's a crazy rebellion. Now, the government will try to dance every which way, but to have people taken on a regular basis on ships, and golly knows what was done to them, it's pretty crazy. So that's it. Love the hearing. I really did. I think everybody did a great job. I'm looking forward to another one. I couldn't believe I'm even saying that, but I really am. So with that said, thanks, and I hope you enjoyed. Bye-bye.